The woman accidentally discovered that the maid was secretly poisoning the food, but she could only pretend to remain calm, because at this moment she could not reveal her secret of feigning blindness. Soon the maid brought the meal to the woman. The woman also could only slowly bring the food to her lips. Just as the maid was waiting for the show to begin, the woman suddenly asked the maid to fetch her a glass of water. No sooner had the maid stepped away, than the woman quietly switched the positions of the two bowls. When the maid returned with the water and saw the woman eating heartily, she couldn't help but be overjoyed. At that moment, in order to make the maid believe her even more, the woman deliberately pretended to have stomach pain. Then she hobbled to the bathroom with her cane. The triumphant maid was still delighted when her own stomach began to hurt. Suspecting that it was the poisoned bowl she had eaten, she immediately ran to the bathroom. But the woman was inside, combing her hair and putting on makeup. Knowing that the maid had used laxatives, the woman deliberately stalled to make the maid soil her pants. The maid grew increasingly anxious outside the door. Finally, when the woman emerged from the bathroom, the maid couldn't hold it and soiled her pants. This delighted the woman immensely. Afterwards, the woman intentionally mocked the maid for the foul odor. The maid could only explain that her stomach was upset. Thus, the maid made more than a dozen trips to the bathroom. Unwilling to let the woman escape unpunished, the maid placed a basin of hot water on the floor, and then deliberately smashed a glass cup. Claiming she had accidentally scalded herself, she begged the woman to come help her. Seeing the woman fall for the trick, the maid was extremely pleased, but that had only been her fantasy. When she truly set her revenge plan in motion, the woman had already seen everything, so she calmly walked toward the maid. Watching as the woman's foot was about to be burned by the hot water, the maid felt triumphant. Unexpectedly, the woman lightly lifted her foot and instead dumped the basin of hot water onto the maid's hand. The maid suspected that the woman was not blind after all. At that moment, the woman's husband returned home. The maid immediately told him about the woman's feigned blindness, but the woman vigorously defended herself. The man also did not believe that his wife had regained her sight, and he demanded that the maid apologize to his wife immediately. This infuriated the maid. After calming the woman down, the man said that the maid's hand was injured, so he left the woman alone at home, and took the maid to the hospital for treatment. In the car, the maid kept complaining that the woman was faking blindness. In fact, the man had seen the truth as well, but they now lacked sufficient evidence to prove it. Then the man scolded the maid for provoking the woman, saying that if she hadn't tried to frame the woman, she wouldn't have ended up injuring her own hand. To test whether the woman was truly blind, the man came up with a plan. He brought the woman's father back home. The woman immediately feared that her father would be implicated. The father had always believed that the man loved his daughter very much, and that he ran their family's company with impeccable order. The father had nothing but praise for his son-in-law. Suddenly, the father saw the maid sitting next to the man. He angrily rebuked the maid for her lack of manners. Seeing this, the man hurriedly asked the maid to cut fruit for the father. Soon the maid returned with a platter of fruit. To everyone's shock, she took out a fruit knife, and attempted to harm the father to test whether the woman had regained her sight. Fortunately, the woman called out father just in time, and the maid hastily stopped her assassination attempt. The man also realized his wife was feigning blindness, but he was powerless to prevent what had just occurred.